I want to talk a little more about Crimson Desert today because over this last week or so, we've been getting a lot of news and sneak peeks, along with a bunch of creators that actually got to go and check out the game in person for roughly 6 hours and then come back and share their experience, what they thought of the game. So I want to cover some of that today, along with the performance and technical specs and a lot of the gameplay aspects, because we know a lot more about that as well. And then I also want to share some of my own thoughts based on what we know so far about the game and why I'm personally really excited for this one as someone coming from playing a lot of survival crafting building games, because I actually haven't done a whole lot of adventure style games. I haven't played The Witcher, I haven't played Red Dead Redemption, or any of those games, but I'm actually really excited for this one, and I will share more about that later on. But to kick things off, let's go ahead and talk about the technical specs and the performance of this game, because we now know a lot more about that thanks to a video from Digital Foundry going over a lot of the performance and a lot of the graphics and all the details in that regard. So this footage was recorded on a PC with a Ryzen 9 and a RX 7900 XTX, which is still pretty decent, but last gen tech, and it was running perfectly fine in 4K at 60 FPS on ultra settings, with ray tracing on and no upscaling tricks or any of that. So they were mentioning in the video that the ray tracing looked really, really good and provided really good lighting indoors and outdoors without dropping frames, and it honestly looks really, really incredible. And another big takeaway from this video are the water physics. They are absolutely crazy in this game. We get real waves, rivers, and the shorelines that actually sort of react, like the water flows in back on itself. And this isn't just faked in this game like it is with most. We actually are getting real water physics here, which is a really, really cool thing. And then another big thing that I kind of mentioned a little in my last video that was sort of going over the story and all of the game is that we just get really, really far render distance. The trees, grass, mountains, all of that good stuff, they really stay sharp in a really far away view, which is super cool to see. So you don't really get any of that stuff kind of popping in or any of those low quality level of detail things. So I think that'll be really awesome for immersion when you're just exploring the game, especially when we can ride the dragons and all of that. But yeah, they were saying that the ray tracing and the performance and all of that felt like it rivaled what Unreal Engine 5 does, because I know with a lot of games, we think Unreal Engine 5 and it's like, oh, really amazing graphics. They have Nanite, they have Lumen, they have the potential to make games really, really performance friendly if they wanted to. The issue is a lot of developers just don't know how to use the engine to its fullest, so we end up with more buggy games or really poor performance games at launch. And that is a benefit of Crimson Desert, as it's running on the Black Space engine, I believe is what it's called. Their own engine doing all of this, and they're just doing a really, really incredible job with it. You know, it is built for this specific game, and I think it's going to run it really, really well. And it is coming on PS5 and Xbox on the exact same day as PC on March 19th. So there's no waiting there, and obviously to come to those, it has to be able to perform to some degree. And there was even some mention that it would be able to run on MacBook, which I am really curious to see if they do that. So basically, PS5 Pro players shouldn't have to worry at all, but some of the regular PS5 players are a little worried after seeing the PC breakdown, because a lot of people online are thinking, it might only be at 30 FPS based on consoles. The Xbox store page does say 60 FPS here if we look at it and all of that, so make of that what you will. But, you know, if you're playing on console or PS5, maybe you wait for it to come out for a few days, see how it is before trying to buy it. And someone did a post on Reddit as well. The rain looks insane, and yeah, the rain definitely looks awesome. But yeah, man, I really hope consoles can handle this. It all seems too good to be true, which this was from a bit ago before we kind of learned a lot of the tech specs. I do think a lot of the console players are definitely getting their hopes higher than they were. Some people are going on to say they prefer it in 30 FPS for a more cinematic experience. I won't comment on that. I prefer 60 or at least 45-ish. I used to stream actually on my really old PC when I first started this channel. The highest I could play games in was 30 FPS. It does work. It is not as bad as you might think sometimes. But yeah, for fast action games, which it does look like there's a lot of quick combat or maneuvers in Crimson Desert, it'll be really interesting to see how all of that runs, but so far it really is looking promising and the performance really is looking awesome. So now let's talk a little about what everyone is saying about it and all of these creators who got a chance to play it in person and what they thought of the game. So at its core, a bunch of them were mentioning it definitely is a very adventure-focused game. And a big thing that came up a lot is that it does not have any hand-holding. It has some to some degree, but there are some complex puzzles. There are some things that many of them could not figure out how to do, and then a dev would come and teach them or show them something, which, could be a bad thing, could be a really good thing. For me personally, I really like that because one of the big things I'm excited about this game is honestly just for a huge, really fun adventure with innovative tech, beautiful graphics, good immersion to kind of do for fun as like a live stream series. And we could have a ton of fun streaming it with all of you guys in the chat as well, trying to figure out all of these puzzles together. So personally, for a game like this, I really like that route of a little bit less hand-holding, and of course, probably within the first few weeks, there will be lots of tutorials online to get you through the difficult puzzles or any of that, take a trip to YouTube, all of that good stuff. But yeah, it is a very, adventure-focused game at its core. A little less dialogue or hand-holding, in that sense than something like The Witcher from what they were saying. But yeah, it definitely interests me. I think the systems are in place there. They did say that the game got a little bit buggy late game. So they basically had about a 4-hour window to try an early game version. And then after their lunch break or something, they had another 2 hours to test it in the late game stage. And they were saying that late game stage, there were definitely a lot of frustrating bugs with the puzzles and things like that. The big thing they were commenting on though about this is because there's so many hours in the game, you're not really going to reach that end game stage within the first 70 to 100 hours. So there's going to be plenty of playtime, which that may take some players weeks to complete if you're going through a lot of the game. And in those weeks, Pearl Abyss will probably have plenty of time to update things. I think they're working from early game to late game, just making sure everything front loaded is really polished and ready to go. And then, but if you're someone who just wants to speed run it, get to late game as soon as possible, it may be buggy in that first week or so. They said as far as the performance goes, though, that yes, indeed, it ran spectacularly without any issues whatsoever, which is really cool to hear. So it's just a few bugs here and there with the puzzles, which with a game that does less hand-holding, definitely got a bit frustrating to some of them because, when it's not telling you exactly how to do the puzzle and then you think you're doing it right, but it's actually just a bug and you can't complete it. So anyway, I hope that is, kind of polished out. I think that's a concern for some people. But like I said, they experienced the early game part really smooth. That was more of a late game thing there. But yeah, they all said the game was very interactive, tons of different ways to do things, certain ways to solve these puzzles or quests that you may never have even thought of, which is just really cool. Lots of little hidden Easter eggs and other things. It was getting compared a lot to Dragon's Dogma or Dragon's Dogma 2, what people kind of wanted from that. And the overall response seemed very positive. So as far as my personal thoughts on this game, I do think I'm going to get it. I do think I'm going to try it out, and I think it could be a really fun adventure game to stream on the channel. It's kind of launching at this perfect time in between my other large survival crafting games. Right now, I'm waiting on Enshrouded and Valheim 1.0 more, which will be coming toward the end of the year. And it's kind of a fun time for a fun adventure. I've been feeling a little burnout personally on a lot of these low effort survival games that have been dropping, and I've always wanted to try a really in-depth adventure style game, like The Witcher and stuff. Obviously, this not having quite as much, commentary and things like that, but yeah, similar style, and I really appreciate the innovation and leading edge technology when it comes to these games, and it sort of gives me hope and inspiration to then see, oh, what could I be looking forward to as well in some of these future survival crafting games, and how they can actually start looking in the future when it comes to render distance and all of that. So yeah, it just gives me a lot of inspiration at checking out some of these leading edge technology games with super immersive graphics and sound design. That was another thing that was commented on. Some of the players were saying, oh, because it was this loud room, bunch of people playing side by side, they couldn't really immerse themselves in the sound design, but they did say it was very, very good. And based on the trailers and everything we've seen clips-wise of the game so far, it does seem good. So yeah, I'm really excited to check something like that out and maybe even get some inspiration from some of the large buildings or villages or towns or landscapes from the game that we could then go and create in some of these other survival building games and all of that. So that's how the game sits with me personally. I'm definitely excited about it. I obviously know it could be a little rocky around the edges, but it could even be better than what they experienced when it first launches, because it'll have official AMD and NVIDIA drivers and all of that. So it may actually run really, really smooth. So do be sure to subscribe if you would like to join this fun adventure with me, and stay tuned for some of the live streams and all. And comment below your thoughts on the game. What are you most looking forward to? What are you the most skeptical or hesitant about? I think it just has a ton of potential. It definitely seemed like a too good to be true at first, but as all these specs and real world tests are coming out, they're being really open about the development process and everything. And yeah, I do have high hopes for this one, and I really can't wait to check it out.